And we're back for another edition of the jury. Just a two-person jury. Ashley gets a day off after a lot of hard work and traveling around the past weekend. So just Darren and James with you today to navigate the waters of both Churchill Downs and Parks Racing. Two great cards of action. Of course, the last big grade one for the 3-year-olds in the Pennsylvania Derby formerly was run on Labor Day, which was actually a lot of fun. I used to go to Parks Labor Day weekend with my dad and used to enjoy the Pennsylvania Derby. But now it was $1 million event on the third Saturday of the month. Certainly drew another a great field. The Cotilion as well, just the stakes Leighton card there, and a great card at Churchill as well. As we bring in James Scully and James, par for the course, best bets and fades. We'll talk about them. We'll head down to Bensalem right there off Street Road for your best bet of the day.
That's right, and moving the date back to this third weekend of September definitely has allowed the Penn Derby and the Cotilion to get runners from Saratoga's big weekends. So, obviously, the Pennsylvania Derby. Well, we'll talk about Torpedo Anna and the Cotilion from the Travers, but my best bet's going to be number 8, Unmatched Wisdom in the Pennsylvania Derby. And Unmatched Wisdom, he was the top seller. He sold for $450,000 at a 2-year-old sale last year. Top selling offspring from Cairo Prince in 2023, but he didn't make his career debut until mid-May. Record opened up with a pair of convincing wins over maiden and entry-level allowance rivals. I liked his win in the Curlin Stakes 2 starts back. Darren, I really thought that this was against a much better rival in Corporate Power, who runs second in here. And I like the way that his numbers improved. Unmatched Wisdom, after earning numbers in the low 90s, Bristnet speed ratings in the low 90s, jumped up to 99 figure for this Curlin. He didn't go on off this race in the Travers. That race looked like it was going to have all kinds of pace, which never materialized. It wound up being a very moderate pace, and he sort of Unmatched Wisdom raced evenly throughout, eventually finishing 7th, but still getting an enormous class relief off that spot. That race had fierceness, Torpedo Anna, Dornick, and others in it, and the thing I like is the morning line favorite in this race, the Pennsylvania Derby, is Dragoon Guard. He's 8-5 on, or 9-5 on the 9-5 on the morning line. I don't think these odds are per se 100% correct, because Caesar Gray is the 5-1 second choice. But Dragoon Guard has been earning speed ratings in the low 90s for his last 2 wins. Unmatched Wisdom's 99 figure, 2 starts back, is the field topper, field best number, and he's just faster than his rivals on paper in the Pennsylvania Derby. So I'm going to back these Bristnet speed ratings, back this up and coming colt from Chad Brown. I don't think I'll get 8-1, but I like Unmatched Wisdom to win the Pennsylvania Derby on Saturday, Darren.
Yeah, the Travers just didn't go his way. He got off to a little bit of a slow beginning, was nowhere near the early pace, or wasn't as close to the early pace as he usually is. And that certainly, I think, did him in, as he was kind of chasing Batten down in the other speed there, moved wide, and then just had nothing left for the stretch run, and they took care of him through the wire. His previous 3 efforts certainly were strong. You mentioned the Curlin, a 99 figure there. Definitely think that this race could be ripe for the picking against the favorite. And I'll talk about that more as we get to my fade. But my best bet actually comes at Churchill Downs in the Dogwood. It's the grade 3, race number 8, going 7 furlongs. I love Helena's Forte here, James. This filly's won 2 of her last 3. They actually entered her to be run on the turf last time out in the Galway. The race came off the grass, and that might have really moved her forward. Even though she had a little bit of an awkward beginning, she moved wide, came up the inside then, and got up by a head as the 3-5 betting choice in just a field of 4. You see her kind of coming through here along the inside to gamely get up right at the wire to get the victory in what was a 3-horse blanket photo finish there. But I just think the way this race sets up on paper, I like the fact that she's drawn to the outside. There is a little bit of pace in it, but there's not a lot of early speed. And I think she's going to be able to be in a really good spot, maybe sitting right off of a horse like Legadima to her inside, where she could just sit in the catbird seat, sitting second, sitting third off the speed, and make her move and get first run on the closers. I think she's in a really good spot here. She's faced some really difficult company in the past. She ran in the 8 Bells. They tried to stretch her out in the Ashland. You could draw a line through that race. I just think the way things set up here, Junior Alvarado is going to get the call as the first time piloting this filly, but just like her quite a bit in this spot, and love the 9-2 price.
Yeah, I'll talk about the dogwood a little bit later in my what else section, but Alina's Forte, I agree with your points, Darren. She's won 2 of her last 3, and I thought one of her best performances this year came when she won that 7 furlong Ruthless Stakes earlier this season at Aqua, going back 7 furlongs on Saturday. So I like that pick for your best bet.
Yeah, definitely think square value. Hopefully, she offers every bit of that 9-2. Remains to be seen, but definitely think at 7-2 or better, she's worth the play there. Well, we talked about the horses that we like. Let's talk about the horses that we are going to be taking a stab against. And I know your fade comes in Louisville, Kentucky, James.
It does, and I'm going to fade in the Seneca Overnight Stakes, race number 10 at Churchill Downs, number 12, Miss Justify. She won a 1 mile stake at Saratoga 2 starts back, the Wilton Stakes. That race, you know, last year had a solid cast in that field, but this year's field I didn't think was strong at all. The runner-up came back and didn't run well in her next start, and I think she was, and then the third place finisher was last next time out. So I didn't think that was a very strong field that day in that race. And I think her 4th place effort last time in the Alabama Stakes looks better on paper than it actually was. She was no factor whatsoever, finishing 4th that day. In fact, I think at this point of her career, I know she's the daughter of Justify, but I think at this point of the career, you can make the argument that she's better at 1-turn distances at like a mile or less. Maybe she will go on and eventually earn a win at 2 turns, but she's stretching back out to 2 turns in this race. She drew a tough outside post. Todd Pletcher has another runner in this field in Life Talk that I like better than Miss Justify. I can make a case for a couple others in there as well. So I am going to take on the morning line favorite in the Seneca Overnight Stakes, number 12, Miss Justify. Who is your fade, Darren?
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I think there's several ways you can go. My fade goes into the Pennsylvania Derby. I'm fading Dragoon Guard, as we kind of alluded to earlier, James. I mean, he's won 4 in a row, and he's done it in rather convincing fashion, but I do question the quality of some of those wins. I'm not the biggest fan of Stronghold, who he defeated 2 starts back, and that's probably the race that people are going to point to and say, well, Stronghold is a contender in here as a 5-2 second choice in the morning line. So that really moves Dragoon Guard forward. But I think this field is much more balanced than that. You mentioned Unmatched Wisdom as a horse that you think is a logical player in here. And I think another reason that you could play against him is I don't think he's making this kind of early lead that he's gotten each of the last couple of starts. You have to imagine Seize the Gray is going to be going. Just Step On It should be doing just that from the starting gate, and is another that I think is going to be forward. I think Unmatched Wisdom off that race in the Travers has to get more involved early as well. So I think Dragoon Guard is going to face a much more challenging pace scenario from more quality runners than he has in the past. And I think that combination makes him vulnerable at a short price. He could prove me wrong and win again and, potentially be a serious threat going into the fall championship races. But at a short price, I think Dragoon Guard could be ripe for the picking here, James.
I mean, Darren, I couldn't agree more with you. I think the pace scenario is going to be completely different than his last 3 wins, his only 3 wins, where not only did he have no pressure on the lead, but he's basically under a hand rod turning for home. And for all he knew, it was just another morning workout. I think he faces a complete different set of circumstances. And at short odds, I'm going to be playing against Dragoon Guard as well.
Yeah, fantastic day of racing at Parks. We'll talk about a couple more races in my what else, but it's also a fantastic day to talk about TwinSpires tournaments, and it features the 2 cards that we are discussing on Saturday as we have a BCBC NHC qualifier coming up to the Breeders' Cup, guys, in just about 6 weeks' time. So these BCBC qualifiers, you're running out of chances, and we're happy to offer one on Saturday. We have feeders all week long, including another feeder later today, a feeder tomorrow as well. But the big one is going to be on Saturday. It's going to include both racetracks, Parks for the Pennsylvania Derby card and Churchill Downs. There are races that are selected to be a part of this contest, so be sure to make note of that. Thankfully, Our product engine only lets you wager on the races that are selected, but for your handicapping ahead of time, be sure you're aware of which races are going to be included. Of course, all the big ones at both tracks will be on the list, but a great day of racing and a great day to include those two tracks in our BCBC NHC qualifier on Saturday. And we are happy to have our first harness racing tournament Friday night at Hoosier Park. They've got their Trotting Classic there. It's a fantastic card, 15 races, $75 buy-in, and we're guaranteeing, regardless of the number of people in the contest, a $2,500 prize pool. That's almost like a net takeout or a negative takeout, because we do need to get 100 people in order for us not to have to contribute to that prize pool. So you do have an opportunity to get a lot of bang for your buck there, depending on how many people enter. I think it's going to be well received. It's our first harness tournament. We're really excited to partner with Hoosier Park here on a great night of racing. So be sure to go to the tournaments page, register for our first opportunity to get involved with a harness racing tournament for Hoosier Park Trotting Classic night. And then we can take a look at some of our offers this weekend as well. Of course, the money back offer rolls through Churchill Downs once again. Selected races each and every day. Second and third, you get your money back, so up to $10 there. So be sure to take part in that. And we'll also talk about what we have coming up with BetShare. Saturday's a great day to be involved with BetShare. There's going to be tremendous multi-race exotic opportunities at parks, at Churchill Downs. We're going to have tickets going out from some experts as well. You could put together your own BetShare. It's one of the great things that TwinSpires offers that's unique within the gambling space for online wagering. Share your bet with your friends and take part in our BetShare opportunity. No better day to do it than this Saturday with such a blockbuster cards of racing at both parks and Churchill Downs all over the country as well. So a lot to get excited for this weekend. James, a lot to talk about. What else are you looking at?
Well, over the last 5 years, champions Kafefi and Echo Zulu have both won the Grade 3 Dogwood at Churchill Downs. That race served as a prep for the Filly Mare Sprint, potential prep for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint for 3-year-old fillies. And definitely, I would think My Main Squeeze and potentially others are looking at a possible Breeders' Cup Filly Mare berth at Churchill Downs if they run well on Saturday in the Dogwood. But I will say this about My Main Squeeze. She won this Dogwood, won this 8 bells this spring over a muddy track. And I think in her 3 starts since then, a 4th in the Acorn, a 3rd in the Test, and a 2nd last time out at Charlestown. She really has been a non-threatening finisher, not a serious threat in any of those efforts. I realize that sometimes you get these horses at Churchill Downs. It can be horses for the course. We saw 8 Bells winner obligatory a few years ago come back and win the Chaluki in the fall and the Grade 1 Derby City Distaff the following spring. But all those races were on fast tracks. And this year's 8 Bells, the only runner in that 11-horse field, Darren, that's been able to win since then, and I think 10 of them have raced since then, is Helena's Forte. She's a 2-time winner since then. The race has been a little bit of a negative key race, and you referenced her earlier. I think that she's primed for a big effort returning to Churchill Downs for Phil Bauer, and I definitely like her chances more than My Main Squeeze on Saturday. Along with the Dogwood and Seneca, Churchill will be hosting the Harrods Creek Stakes for 3-year-olds at 7 furlongs. I think that this will mark the stakes debut for a Luminaire, who's an exciting colt for Todd Pletcher off a convincing maiden entry-level allowance wins. And then in the Bourbon Flight Stakes at a mile and 3/16 for 3-year-old, the aforementioned Ohio Derby winner Batten Down will try to rebound, get back on track following his poor showing in the Travers. He looks like lone speed in there. It'll be no surprise to see Batten Down bounce back with a good showing on Saturday. So lots of good stakes action this Saturday. So I went over a little bit of the stakes fair at Churchill Downs. So, Darren.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same at Parks, James. A couple of horses I want to talk about. Be remiss to not mention the Grade 3 Greenwood Cup at a 1.5 miles, which of course features next. And, I've talked about it before here. I'm disappointed to see him in this race. I was hoping he would run in the Jockey Club Gold Cup or, the Lucas Classic, something to get him going towards potentially a shot in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But here he is again, going a 1.5 miles, facing horses that he towers over. His prime power number of nearly 154 is about 18 points higher than the second highest prime power number in the Brisnet ratings. You don't see that every day, but you do see it often with Next. He's won his last 5 races by a combined 78 and a quarter lengths, which is just completely ridiculous. The one thing I'm surprised about is that they found 9 horses to run against him here. But I guess if you run second or third, you get black type in a grade 3. So, what the heck. But Next here in the Greenwood Cup, assuming he gives another good showing, we'll see where he goes from there. And then, of course, you have to talk about the Cotilion Stakes. Back in against the girls, Torpedo Anna. She's 4 to 5 in the morning line. She's probably going to be 1 to 5 or 2 to 5 at post time, coming out of just what was a fantastic effort in the Travers Stakes, as you get a glimpse of her getting beat by maybe you call it about a head at the wire by Fierceness. A race where she just did not stop coming and made Fierceness dig down for everything he had there, and what was a fantastic performance, and certainly proved her ability and where she ranks amongst this 3-year-old crop. Barring anything unforeseen, she figures to stand out once again against this group on her road to a potential showdown with the older fillies and mares in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. But you get a lot of star power. You have a Preakness winner on the card. You've got the Kentucky Oaks winner on the card. You've got Next, who a lot of people want to see take on tougher competition. Probably one of the deepest cards that Parks has put together on Pennsylvania Derby Day. It's got a combination of great betting races and star power. Pretty much all you can ask for, James, when you put together a card like this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to go over my diatribe on Next again. I hope that he goes to the Breeders' Cup Classic if he runs the way he's been running in this Greenwood. Sort of like the Florida Derby, Darren, when they've rounded up 10 for that race and about half the field have been running in claimant races. You got to give kudos for Parks for getting the competitors. But that's the real issue. If he shows up with the same performance we've seen from him in recent starts, the whole question is going to be about the Breeders' Cup when he exits it, because I think his numbers and the fact that he's run so big at 1 mile and 3/8, he completely fits in the Breeders' Cup Classic picture. But as far as Torpedo Anna goes, you're right about her effort in the Travers. I mean, immediately after the wire, she galloped out lengths past Fierceness. She wasn't anywhere close to out of gas at the end of that 1.25 mile race. And I know the easy the easy path after that race is to say Cotilion, Breeders' Cup Distaff. But to me, Darren, if she wins this Cotilion impressively on Saturday, when you're looking forward to the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar in early November, if she wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, do you think anybody in the racing world thinks she won't be Horse of the Year? I mean, to me, it all comes down to how much value do you put on Horse of the Year honors, whether you run her in the Classic or Distaff. If she wins the Cotilion, that's a big F, but I think we both, can make that assumption. And that's going to be the whole argument surrounding her. That's going to be another discussion for another day. But I'm really excited to see both horses run and try to cash some tickets on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's worthy of conversation. I know Ken McPeak has been bearish on the idea of going back in against boys at some point this year. But like you said, no matter what happens the rest of the year, she's obviously the 3-year-old filly champion. There's nothing that can happen that will stop that. So you ask yourself, other than the purse of the race, where's the value of winning the Distaff? The Distaff does go for, I believe it's $2 million. So winning that race would be in the neighborhood of about 1.2 million. Whereas the Classic obviously goes for substantially more and is a much more difficult race. But and then the idea of, does she come back next year at age 4? And would that be a more likely target for her next year if she were to win the Distaff this year? It's certainly one of those great talking points that makes horse racing the great game that it is. And it does give you, some look back to Rachel Alexandra, where you thought maybe we'd never see a campaign like that again. And we still haven't. And I'm not saying that her running second in the Travers stacks up by any stretch to what Rachel did her 3-year-old season. But if, and a big if, she did decide to take on the boys in the Classic, that would certainly be a sight to be seen, because I don't believe a 3-year-old filly has ever attempted that. I think all of the mares that have attempted it, which are, the Azaris of the world, obviously Zenyatta, have all been older fillies and mares. So it would make for certainly a great talking point and would be the story of the Breeders' Cup if it were to happen. But 2 horses running at Parks that you'd like to see in the Classic. So we'll see how it goes. this Saturday down in Bensalem, PA. That's all the time we have for the jury. Thanks so much for joining us. Ashley will be back in the director's chair again next week. We look forward to discussing more with her next week on the jury. So come back then, and be sure to come around Tuesday as we look back to what is going to be a great weekend of racing on the Racing Roundtable. For James, this is DZ signing off. We'll talk to you again next week. Be sure to watch and wager with us at TwinSpires.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much
Good job,
information.
Darren.
With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence. Whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power, and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.